Today I am going to be doing a combined July and August wrap-up. I haven't filmed a video in a while. I've had a lot of stuff going on, like just way too much stuff going on. I didn't make a wrap-up for July because frankly I had a very lackluster reading month in July. I think the highest rating I gave a book in July was 4 stars, and it was a reread. Not counting the reread, the highest rating I gave a book was like 3 stars. So it was just not a great reading month in July. And then August just was, it was too much. August was too much, and I really didn't have a great reading month in August. I think I read 5 books and 4 of them were rereads. So yeah, we're just gonna combine it all into one video and just get it out of the way, because I'm not excited about talking about these books, and so I don't want to spend too much time doing it. I have 11 books to talk about, but like I said, like 5 of them are rereads, so I really only have like 6 books to talk about, and it shouldn't be that long of a video. We'll see how long I end up rambling on, but let's just jump into it. I'm going to talk about them in the order that I read them, but I am going to start with the books that I reread first, because I don't really have much to say about these books because I've reviewed them in the past. So the first 2 books that I'm going to talk about are Shadow and Bone and Siege and Storm by Leigh Bardugo. These are the first 2 books in the Grisha trilogy, or the Shadow and Bone trilogy. I'm currently rereading these via audiobook with Cole. He's never read the series before, and we are going to watch the show, and he really wanted to read the books before we watch the show. So we're in the process of reading all of the Grisha books. So in July we read Shadow and Bone. It took like, I don't know, the whole month, because we really only listen to the audiobook when we're on long trips. So I think it took us like 5 different like car sessions to finish it, but got that. And then Siege and Storm we just finished a couple days ago, like this past week, because we had a couple of long trips in the car. So yeah, first 2 books, Grisha trilogy. If you don't know, this is a YA fantasy trilogy all about a world where people are gifted with Grisha power, which means they have the ability to manipulate elements and do certain things. The main character in this series is a girl named Alina, who at the beginning of Shadow and Bone finds out that she is a sun summoner, which means that she can summon the sun, and she is like the only person that can do this. And so it's all about her helping all these people to defeat the Darkling, who is the opposite of her. He can summon darkness. And anyway, if you don't know what it is by now, I'd be surprised. But anyway, reread these 2 books via audio, and I like them. I realized upon rereading them that this is very like heavily 2000s, like early 2010s tropes, like fantasy tropes, like that you see in pretty much everything that's coming out at that time, so present in these books. But I do have a lot of nostalgia for the series, and I'm really enjoying reading them with Cole and seeing his reactions and stuff. So yeah, it's just fun to be back in this world. And we're currently about 50% of the way through Ruin and Rising, but I'm not sure when we'll finish that, because we don't really have any more like long trips planned anywhere. So it may be like the end of September before we finish that one. But anyway, yeah, that's my first 2 rereads. Also, because August was just kind of the worst and a lot of stuff was going on and I just wasn't like in the mood to read, I decided to turn to a comforting series that I knew would keep me entertained. And so I reread the Illuminati Files by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. This is like one of my favorite YA trilogies. I have read them every year since the first time I read them. I first read the series back in 2019, and I think I read it again in 2019, and then I read it in 2020, and now I've read it in 2021. So I think I've read these books like 4 times total, but I just love the series so much. It is so entertaining and enjoyable, and if you haven't read it, I would highly recommend doing so. If you don't know, the series is a like space opera series all about this evil corporation trying to take down this other corporation, and it's all set in space, and it follows all these different characters. Each book follows a different set of characters in a different situation. It's told in like a case file, so it's like documents and transcripts and stuff, and it's just a ton of fun. I really enjoy the series. I especially really enjoy the audiobooks. They're just easy books for me to fall back into when I am wanting something comforting and entertaining and something fast-paced, something I know 100% that I'll enjoy, and the series just does it for me. So I'll probably continue to read these books every year for however long I am alive, because I just love them and they accomplish what they need to for me. So now, with all of the rereads out of the way, let's talk about the 6 books that I read for the first time in July and August. Starting with Survive the Night by Riley Sager. This is Riley Sager's newest mystery thriller. It's all about a girl who is needing a ride home from school. She's in college and she's needing a ride home. Her roommate has recently been killed and she is just not coping very well, and so she decides that she's gonna go home for a little while and she needs a ride. And so she meets up with this guy on like a ride sharing board, like they meet up with each other, and he agrees to drive her home. It's set over the course of a couple of days, and it's just these two people basically in this car. You kind of begin to suspect that things might not be exactly what they seem. This guy might not be who he says he is, and there might be something a little bit more sinister and tied to her roommate's murder than she was expecting. I absolutely hated this book. It was not good at all. I have problems with Riley Sager in general. I've mentioned it, I think, every time I review a book by him. I really hate the way that he writes women. You can definitely tell that it's a woman written by a man. Like, you know, the male gaze is there. Also, I hated the plot of this book. I thought that the characters were all stupid. In what world would a woman get into a car with a complete stranger after her roommate has been killed and her murderer has not been caught? Like, in what world would anybody willingly get into a car and not know who she's going with? It's absolutely implausible. Even this book is set in like the early 90s, I think, and even in the early 90s, I don't think women would have been stupid enough to get into a car with a complete stranger, especially if there's a murderer on the loose. Every single decision that the main character made was stupid. Everything about it was stupid. And then the big twist at the end, oh, I absolutely hated it. I absolutely hated it. I'm not going to spoil anything because it's relatively recent release, and if you want to read it, I don't want to discourage you from reading it. But with a cast of characters this small, the actual answer, like the actual mystery, is pretty easy to figure out, to be honest. Like, I would be shocked if you didn't figure this out within like the first few chapters of reading this book. All of it was dumb. I hated it. I don't know if I'm going to keep reading Riley Sager, to be honest. I've liked a couple of his books. I really enjoyed Home Before Dark, and I really liked Final Girls, but everything else to me has just been very meh, like very lackluster. It will honestly depend on what the plot of his next book is, whether or not I continue to give him a chance, because I've read all of his books now and I've only liked a couple of them, and even those weren't like super great for me. So I don't know. I think maybe he's just an author that I don't enjoy, but we'll just have to wait and see. Next up, I read Gods of Jade and Shadow by Sylvia Moreno-Garcia. Sylvia Moreno-Garcia is an author that I've heard so many good things about on BookTube. Like, endless good things about her books, constantly being recommended books by her. This is one that I see amongst favorites lists all the time. Even one of my real life friends recommended this book to me and said that it was like one of the best books she'd ever read. And so I was really excited to go into this, and honestly, it really kind of let me down a little bit. It wasn't, I don't know, it didn't quite hit the mark for me, unfortunately. This book is about a girl named Cassiopeia who is basically a servant in her grandfather's household, and she is desperate to change her circumstances. She's desperate to find a new life for herself, and one day she accidentally releases the Mayan god of death, and she gets bound to him because she like scratches herself on his bone, and so like part of his bone is embedded in her finger, and so they are tied together, and so they have to set out on this mission to release that tether, release that bond from each other. And along the way, Cassie meets various other mythological creatures and beings, and also has to like survive, essentially. It sounds like a really exciting premise, and I did really like the direction the story took. I thought that the characters were really interesting, and I thought like definitely the mythology behind like the Mayan gods and stuff was super interesting, because I don't really know a lot about Mayan mythology. But I really did not like the writing style of this book. It was like a very stilted, tell and not show kind of writing style. I felt like I was being kept at arm's length the whole book. And it wasn't because I wasn't getting to know the characters or I wasn't engaged with the story, because I definitely enjoyed the characters and I definitely enjoyed the story, but I think the writing style just kind of held you back a little bit. It doesn't really let you fully form the attachment to the characters in the story that you normally would, I guess. It's not like super action-packed or anything. It is much more a character-driven story, and I don't mind things like that. Like, I don't mind a book where it's just like really getting to know the characters, but I just felt like there was something just a little stilted about it, to be honest. And I also found the ending to be quite unsatisfying. I don't think that the book could have or should have ended differently. I just personally wasn't satisfied with how it ended. I mean, I think I will probably still give Sylvia Moreno-Garcia chances in the future. Like, I think I will read future books by her. I'm really interested in reading Mexican Gothic, and I know there's some other books, especially she's got some more newer releases that are getting some pretty good reviews that I think I will check out. I just wasn't really super impressed by it, unfortunately, and I really wanted to be, because I know how much everybody seems to love this author. But I'm gonna keep giving her a chance, and maybe I'll find a book by her that is like the perfect fit for me. Yeah, this one just wasn't it. The next book I read was The Unhoneymooners by Christina Lauren. Back in June, I read my first couple of Christina Lauren books. I read Love in Other Words and Josh and Hazel's Guide to Not Dating, and I really enjoyed both of those books. I was excited to read more by this author duo, and The Unhoneymooners is a book that I see recommended all the time, so I was really excited about it. This is about a woman named Olive, who ends up having to take her sister's honeymoon because her sister and her new husband and pretty much everybody that was at the wedding falls ill due to food poisoning from like the seafood buffet, and the only people who didn't eat it were Olive, who was deathly allergic to seafood, and the groom's brother, who doesn't like buffets. And so the newlyweds decide to give their trip to their siblings, and it seems like a great plan, except for the siblings Olive and the guy whose name I can't even remember at this point absolutely hate each other. I think that this book is fun. I really think that the premise is a fun one. I like, you know, forced proximity, sharing one bed, a little bit of enemies to lovers, but the whole like enemies aspect of the story really hinged on a huge miscommunication, and that is one of my biggest pet peeves, so I didn't really enjoy that aspect of it. My biggest problem is that I didn't really think either one of the characters was super redeemable. I felt like both of them had like issues that couldn't necessarily or shouldn't necessarily be overlooked. I feel like the big conflict of the story also hinged on miscommunication and like a lack of trust, and I feel like after that there really shouldn't have ever been a relationship formed. I thought that the part of the story that was set on the honeymoon, when they were like first like hating each other and then slowly starting to like each other, was really fun. But then when it was set back in their like normal everyday lives, I didn't enjoy that. It was all right. Not my favorite. I will probably continue to read Christina Lauren. I know that their books are probably all great in some aspect or another. This one wasn't a winner for me, but I definitely thought it was fun. And also I think that's an unpopular opinion, because pretty much every review I ever see of this book is like 4 or 5 stars and people are just raving about how fun and great it is. It was all right. It was all right to me, not perfect, but it is what it is, and that's fine. Next up, I read another mystery thriller, and that was Such a Quiet Place by Megan Miranda. Megan Miranda is an author who I've read pretty much every book she's written, and I really have enjoyed some of her books. The first couple of books I read by her, I really enjoyed, and then I feel like slowly her books have kind of gone downhill for me. It's kind of like Riley Sager a little bit, where I like some and then I just really don't like others, and unfortunately this one was just a little bit underwhelming for me. This is about a woman who lives in this like idyllic neighborhood. Everything about her life seems to be perfect. She's got a great job, and she's got this really nice house, and she's got these close-knit neighbors. At the start of the story, you find out that a year before the book opens, her neighbors were killed, and her roommate was actually arrested and convicted of the crime. And then at the start of the book, some new evidence has come to light, and it has allowed her roommate to be released from jail. And so she comes back to the neighborhood, and she's like basically hell-bent on getting revenge, because she thinks that the people of this neighborhood helped to put her behind bars. My biggest issue with this book was that the roommate, the one that was originally convicted of the crime, was far more interesting than the main character, whose name I can't even remember at this point. I feel like this was just like a bunch of really boring people in a boring neighborhood dealing with boring things. The mystery aspect of it was pretty predictable, and there's like a secondary mystery that comes in a little bit later in the book, and that one was also fairly predictable. I was very underwhelmed by the story. I felt like the main character was boring, the mystery was boring, the writing was boring. I don't know, it didn't do it for me, unfortunately. I'm not having the best luck with mysteries right now, I guess. I like Megan Miranda. I'll probably continue to read books by her because I have enjoyed books by her in the past, and for the most part, her books are either like good or pretty good. There hasn't been one that I absolutely didn't like. This was probably my least favorite by her, but overall, I think she's a talented mystery author, so I will continue to read her books. But this one just, it wasn't it for me, unfortunately. Next up, I read The Immortalists by Chloe Benjamin. This was one of my 5-star predictions for my 2021 TBR. Wow, was I wrong. This book follows a set of siblings. There are 4 of them, and at the beginning of the book, in like the, I think like late 60s, early 70s, they go to this woman who is supposedly able to tell people the day that they're going to die. The rest of the story is basically like what happens as they each like process this information and what happens to each of them. And I thought it was not good. First of all, the writing style is horrible. Second of all, the two most interesting siblings stories are the first two. It's kind of like a little like short story collection because each sibling gets a section and it like goes through their life and then like what happens as they like get up to their death day or whatever. And the first two siblings were like by far the most interesting siblings. And the last two I found completely boring and just not interested in their stories at all. Also, I feel like the message of the book was repeatedly hitting you in the head. Like the author left no room for subtlety or nuance or interpretation. Like she told you exactly how to feel. She told you exactly how to react. She told you exactly what to think of the story as a whole. And I just don't like that. I don't like books where authors don't give the reader any credit. I don't like books where the authors don't give the reader a chance to interpret the story any other way than how the author wants you to interpret it. Also, I feel like the idea of prophecy or fate was explored in a somewhat interesting way, but it never fully like went where it could have gone. I don't know, I just didn't like it. I did not like this book at all. And I'm sad about it because I really did think I was going to love it. I've seen a lot of really great reviews for this book and I just anticipated really enjoying it. The cover's beautiful and it just got this kind of like really interesting synopsis, and the actual book itself was just not executed well. It was boring. It was just not good. Unfortunately, just not good. I think I gave it 2 stars, which is probably me being generous, and it's definitely like my biggest fail so far of all of the books on my 2021 TBR because it's the one I've liked the least. I mean, I guess they can't all be winners. I just really thought this one was going to be, and it let me down. Finally, the last book I have to talk to you about is Truly Devious by Maureen Johnson. This is the first book in the Truly Devious. It was originally a trilogy and now it is expanded, so there's 4 books, so it's a series. This is about a girl named Stevie Bell who at the beginning of the book gets accepted into the like illustrious Ellingham Academy, and she wants to go to this school because she is very passionate about true crime. And so she goes to the school to study true crime, but also she goes to the school because there is a mystery tied to this academy. Back in like the 30s when the school was originally founded, the founder's wife and daughter were kidnapped and nobody has ever been able to solve the mystery. Nobody knows what has happened to them. And so Stevie goes to the school and she thinks that she will be able to solve the mystery. I was really looking forward to reading this book because I have heard such great things about it. I am really into YA mysteries right now for some reason. I have been drawn to them. I've been reading quite a few of them. And I was actually planning on doing a whole vlog where I binged the entire Truly Devious trilogy, the original trilogy, because I just felt like it was going to be a really fun series to get into. Dare I say it, like another time in this book, I was kind of bored. This was kind of boring. I knew going in that there was going to be some kind of mystery element in the present day storyline. Obviously we've got this mysterious kidnapping, disappearance in the past storyline, and I knew it was told from the two storylines, the 2 time periods. But I knew at some point there was going to be a new mystery thrown in, and that happened really late in the story. I think it was past the 50% mark when the new mystery, like the present day mystery, was introduced, and the pacing of it was super off. That first half, the pacing was so slow getting up to like that mystery element being thrown in. And then the second half, after we get that, it goes really quick. Like the first half I think takes place over the course of a couple of weeks, and then the second half takes place over the course of just a couple of days. And so the pacing was weird for me. I also found the like past storyline, the history storyline, to be far more interesting than the present day storyline. I was really looking forward to those chapters, and I feel like they didn't happen enough. They were few and far between, and I wanted more of that. I hope that we get more of that in the later books in the series, but I don't know. Also, I was kind of under the impression that each book would have a different present day mystery, but they would all be solved at the end, and then the overarching mystery was the past mystery. That's not the case, because while it seems to be solved at the end of this first book, I don't believe that it is. There's no confirmation, so it leaves it really open-ended. I don't really necessarily enjoy books where like your enjoyment of the first book or the series as a whole hinges on you reading the entire series. Like, I don't have an opinion really about the mystery in this book because I don't know the answer. And I know that if it ended this way, then the second book is probably going to end in a similar fashion, and we're not going to get any answers to any of the mysteries until the third book. And I don't really like the idea of having to read 3 books just to say that I enjoyed one, you know? I like the writing style. I'm super interested in the characters. Like, I really like Stevie as a main character, and I'm excited to read more and get to know these characters more in the future. But this did disappoint me a little bit. I was a little bit let down by the book, and that's why I didn't immediately jump into book 2, because it took me way too long to read book 1, and I wasn't excited to just immediately jump into a second book. I wasn't excited to immediately get answers because I knew I wasn't going to get any. I knew I was probably just going to get more questions. At some point I am going to continue on with the series. Hopefully I'll finish it off before the end of 2021. But yeah, this one just was not a winner for me, unfortunately. As I've said, I think about all of the books that I reviewed in this video, not the best, but it is what it is. And sometimes you just have lackluster reading months. Unfortunately, I've had 2 in a row, but what can you do? So those are all the books that I read in July and August. Not the best. I feel like my reviews were less than stellar, and it was just I feel like it was a lot of negativity, but like I said, sometimes it's just like that, and sometimes you just have to deal with it, and you just have to hope that the future will be better. I'm really hoping that September is a better reading month for me. I'm going to challenge myself in September to read as much as possible and pick books that I think I'm absolutely going to love. So fingers crossed that it all works out, but we'll just have to wait and see. Let me know down in the comments if you've read any of the books that I mentioned in this video and what you thought about them. Do you have similar or different opinions to mine? I'd really love to know, especially if your opinion is different. Like if you really loved any of these books, I'd really love to know why. I'd really love to know what made you love some of these books. So let me know down in the comments. Also, let me know some books that you read in the last couple months, or maybe your favorite book that you read in the last couple months. I'd really love to know that as well. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you again very soon. Bye!